It's week 2 after I quit my job and decided to launch this new creative life and write a novel and see where that all takes me. Just wanted to give a quick update. I'm hoping these updates help keep me back on track, and maybe at some point in the future they'll be useful to somebody else who's thinking of doing the same thing and can either learn from what I did well or ignore mistakes I made. Either way. This past week, what I did mostly was create a romantic thriller beat sheet. I looked at some of the beat sheets for romance and some of the beat sheets for thrillers, and I couldn't find one that combined the two very well, so I put it together in my own, and I came up with a sheet that I hope will work for me and help keep me on track. It's also got, I put in page counts and word counts too for where I think different points are going to hit. I tried to create it so that the romance beats are complemented by the thriller suspense beats, and at the end everything kind of comes together and concludes in a nice way. I hope that'll give the reader the entertainment value I'm going for, the ride I want to provide, the experience I want them to have when they read this. So that's done. And then I put that into a very rough outline with only a line or two for each of the beats. And then I worked on character development. So I started putting together character sheets, and what I wanted to do was go back to older books I've read where I thought the characters were done really well, people I want to emulate. And some books I didn't actually finish because I never connected with the characters of the story, or it was jumbled, or there's too much happening. And I wanted to compare the two and see what was done well that made me feel invested and want to keep reading, and what was not done so well that made me go, ugh. So I went through Game of Thrones because I really like, I think everybody likes the way those are written and how memorable the characters are and how invested you feel when something happens to them. And one of the things that really stood out was how little is actually said about the characters. You're in their heads, but there's not a whole lot said about what people look like. There aren't a whole lot of descriptions. It's left up to the reader. And I think that's one of the things that really creates the strong connection in your mind with the characters, so you can identify with them. Because each person then is left to fill in the blanks and picture the character the way they see it in their own mind. One of the books I never finished, it kept referring to the hero as, it kept making a big deal about his dark, black, glistening, glossy, beautiful, flowing hair. And it was brought up so many times. The problem was I kept picturing the hero as a blonde, like dark blonde, but blonde still, nowhere near like dark hair with, these gloss, glisten in the moonlight and things like that. And it really took me out of the story when I was reading it every time the author mentioned again his jet black hair. And I'd be like, oh, that's right. I don't know this guy. I've got it all wrong. I keep picturing him as a blonde. Comparing that to Game of Thrones, I think Jon Snow's eyes are only mentioned once, the color. From Bran's perspective, his brother, looking at him and thinking they're dark gray, but sometimes they look almost black. That's the only place I could find the color of his eyes mentioned anywhere in Game of Thrones. And what came to me was, if you read the series and you had Jon Snow pictured with brown eyes or maybe even blue eyes through the whole thing, you wouldn't have been taken out of the story by that one line. But you might have been taken out of the story if it was mentioned 60 times. And that's how I felt in the other book. It was mentioned so much, but it didn't match my own personal picture of the hero in my mind, that I was taken out of the story, and I just never connected with the character, and I ended up not finishing the book. So that was a lesson. Don't bang people over the head. Don't bang your readers over the head with the descriptions that you have in your head. Figure out what parts are important, like, when he hurt his sword hand, he burned his sword hand and he had to learn how to fight differently because of that. That was an important thing that happened to his person and descriptive. But other things, like exactly how they look, details about their features, it's great if I have it in my own mind exactly how I want that person to look, because they're a person to me in my mind. These people I'm writing about, they become real. And it's great if you have this very solid picture in your mind. But it's not great if the reader doesn't have that same picture and you're trying to force them to. And I think this is also why anytime a book is made into a movie, there's some people that look at it and say, oh, it looks like it's going to be great. And then there's always a certain percentage of people that are like, oh, no way. That doesn't look like this character at all. I can't picture that person playing this character. This could never work. So, yeah, that just reinforces what I picked up on from the Game of Thrones books was, don't beat the reader over the head with your personal descriptions of the character. You're telling a story. You want them to be invested in the story. Let them create as much of it as possible in their own minds so that they feel more invested and they want to stay longer and hopefully finish the book and maybe buy another one. In that same vein, I want to go back still and do a little bit more character development. And one of my favorite authors who I'd really like to emulate as I grow into being a writer more is Colleen McCullough. I've never read some of her more popular books. I never read the Thornbirds, but I did read the Masters of Rome series because I'm very interested in history, and a lot of the history books out there from that time, they're very factual. What she did was she took a lot of the facts known from that period of time and she wove it into historical fiction that I just loved it. I just loved it. It does, there's some places where it gets too wordy and a description of like a dinner or a meeting or something goes on and on and on for like 5 to 8 pages and you're like, really? Yeah, so that there can be some bumps in the road with that. But overall, the picture she presents, you get an idea of what the Roman society must have been like, how it was to live in that time, decisions being made, even like the politics and the social culture. So I want to revisit that too and see how she created those characters. So that's what I want to work on next also. And so other goals for this week, I want to continue working on the character sheets. And then I want to take the outline and actually start scaffolding out chapters, but just with a few lines for each chapter, because it's all kind of swirling around in my head right now and jumbled. And I feel like if I get it out and put it there and document it where I can refer back to it, it'll be a little bit easier. I'll feel a little less like I've got to get it all out at once. I think this is called the snowflake method. I'm not really sure. I'll look that up later and see. But I'm just worried that if I try to go from the beginning in linear order right now, I'm going to either skip over or completely forget some of those moments that I really want to include. And I want to get them down while they're fresh in my brain. And they still seem good. Because if you go over something, I find if you have an idea and it cooks and cooks and cooks, it can actually overcook. And then when you put it down, it becomes kind of flat. Like if you've seen the same thing over and over and over, if it's been replaying in your mind that much, I think the same thing can happen when you finally write it down. So I want to write it down early so that when I revisit it again later, I can do it with a fresh eye. I can kind of let go of it right now. And then when I pick it up later, it'll be fresh again. So it doesn't feel too contrived. What else is going on right now? Adjusting to life after retirement. I think my alarm clock is still set to wake up at 5:45. I'm not sure. I'll have to check. But not having to wake up, get out of bed when that goes off, I'm still waking up pretty early. I still have a lot I want to get done. I do want to create a schedule for myself of the goals I want to hit for writing so I don't go completely off track, because I have a bunch of things I want to do and I don't want to just fall down a rabbit hole of doing something and forgetting to get back to the book. Yeah. Oh, I created a Substack. Gee. Because everyone I've been reading, listening to, all these things I've been learning online, it says if you're an independent author, you have to have a Substack. I had never even been to Substack. Didn't know what it was, wasn't really interested, but it's like, okay, fine. I'm doing this thing. I have to learn a bunch of other stuff anyway, so I'll learn Substack too. So I created a Substack, and I'm still trying to figure out exactly what I want to do there, but I'll be documenting this author's journey there too. I have a subscriber. That happened on the first day. That was strange. But I'm trying to keep up with that too, so I'm hoping to post weekly updates similar to what I have here, other things too, and we'll see how that evolves, if that can actually be a tool to gain readers or critique partners or an agent, or just figure this whole thing out. So yeah, that's a whole new thing to learn that I hadn't thought of when I started. So it's definitely not what I used to think of as a kid as retirement, where, you know, sitting on the porch in a rocking chair watching the sunsets. No. I feel like I have so much more to do now, and I finally have the time to do it. So yeah, very happy, still moving forward, learning a lot, and enjoying it all. So yeah, thank you.